Welcome to the World of Empowerment podcast, the show where we explore the cutting edge of spiritual growth, holistic healing, self-discovery, and where we give to the dreams of others. I am Ahonu, and with me is my lovely Aingeal Rose. Today, we're thrilled to get into the fascinating world of homeopathy as a tool for spiritual evolution. Our guest is Sarah Sylvester, originally from London, but living in the west coast of Ireland in the Kingdom of Kerry. Sarah is a visionary healer who creates complex, multi-layered remedies tailored for starseeds, light workers, and spiritual seekers. From ancient trees and crystals to star blueprints and neurotransmitters, she works with a diverse range of frequencies to help her clients connect with their source, to expand their awareness and clear energetic blockages. So, in this episode, we'll explore her unique journey into homeopathy, her passion for working with spiritual communities, and her creative process for co-creating bespoke remedies. If you're curious about the intersection of energy, consciousness, and healing, you're in for a treat. So, let's begin.
You're listening to World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world. And here are your hosts, Aingeal Rose and Ahonu.
All right. Well, Sarah Sylvester, you are very welcome, and you're coming to us from the Kingdom of Kerry in Ireland. How did you get there?
Oh my God. I don't know. You know what? I don't know. I didn't know very much about Ireland when I arrived in Ireland. I'd read a few books. I had done a few plays at college when I was an actor. Yeah. And then when I came here, I was amazed by the place. And a friend of mine just introduced me to some of her friends. And before I knew it, I was coming over often to visit them. And then I met somebody, and then that was it. I moved over from London.
Right, yeah. And because you're originally from London, right?
Yes, exactly. London, which obviously is a million miles away from Kerry in regards to the environment. Yes. I had this really fun story once when I was going back to London. I was trying to get back over the mountain, which is just to the kind of the left of me, the Connor Pass. And as I was driving up, it started to rain, and then it started to snow. And by the time I got to the top, it was like 2 foot of snow, and I had to turn around, go all the way around the mountain, and then 3 hours later I was in a jazz club in London dancing. And I was thinking back, this is crazy. I was just stuck up a mountain with snow, and now here I am. So it's
right. That is one of the bizarre things about Ireland. Like, it's 40 minutes flight from Dublin to London. Now, okay, by the time you take into account your customs and all the rest of it, it can be a little bit longer, but in terms of flight time, and it's so convenient, but yet it is surprising how few people visit from one country to the other. But you've taken up residence, and not only that, but in the Kingdom of County Kerry, which is an absolutely amazing place.
Yes. And it's very, I find especially Kerry is quite conservative in lots of ways. There's a lot of farming, fishing, there are other parts of Ireland which are more alternative, Cork and Galway and parts of Clare. But Dingle is quite a popular place with Americans, actually, because it's got so much charm here, so much
That's
charm.
Right, yeah. And it's reasonably close to Shannon Airport, which would be a main hub for American visitors. Yeah.
Exactly. 2 hours drive.
And you've got Killarney and the Ring of Kerry and all those places that they would be familiar with from the Bord Fáilte advertising and so on. But you did mention alternative. So let's get stuck into that, because here you are in this conservative area of County Kerry, and yet you are pioneering something quite amazing. I mean, Aingeal Rose, I know, was quite impressed with what you were doing in terms of homeopathy for starseeds, of all things. Now, tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, firstly, I was a homeopath for a while. I've been one for 15 years, but I noticed that my clientele weren't normal people. The people that were responding to what I do were healers, light workers, therapists. And I started to realize my people were those people rather than, let's say, your average person on the street. And a few years ago, I had a treatment with a friend of mine. I had taken a remedy actually just before that treatment called lac caninum, and which is actually dog's milk. And I had the treatment, and during the treatment, I just had a lucid vision of my body being unzipped, and underneath it was this blue body. And it was very clear, and me and my friend were talking about it, we were laughing about it. She was saying, what do your hands look like? What do your feet look like? You know, we were just joking. But it seemed very obvious to me that I'm not from this planet. And in a way, I hadn't really ever clicked before then. You know, I hadn't actually said, well, that's a possibility. I'd obviously felt certain feelings of alienation, or, you know, I'm not fitting in or whatever. And then from that moment on, I just thought, of course, no wonder. So what happened when we worked out that I was kind of basically a star seed from Sirius, and obviously Sirius is the dog star, and I had taken this remedy, lac caninum, which is dog's milk. And what I realized was that was the beginning, but I realized over time that certain remedies relate to certain star systems. And you know, there's already been a lot of work with astrology and homeopathy, but in regards to like star seeds and then giving us remedies to support us, I started kind of working on that and working with people in that area. Yeah. And it seems to be an area which people need help with, because they often feel very homesick.
Yes. Well, Aingeal Rose and I, we began training in homeopathy in Belfast, maybe 10 or 12 years ago. And unfortunately, we couldn't complete it because she's not an Irish citizen. And as such, we only had a 3-month window. So we only did the very early parts of it. And it was a pity, really, we couldn't continue. But homeopathy has been very close to her all her life. And the same with me. We raised our children on it. But it's also interesting how few enough people realize the benefit of homeopathy. Why do you think that is? Like, do you think it's suppressed in some way, or?
Well, you know what? It is a really interesting subject, why people don't realize how useful homeopathy is, not only on a physical level, but we're talking for a tool for spiritual development as well. And it works in so many different ways. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most, I read something recently, it said homeopathy was one of the most controversial subjects in the world. You know, and if you go to newspapers like The Guardian, they've really slammed homeopathy. That's an English newspaper.
Because it was originally endorsed by the royal family for years, going back like a few hundred years. And it was very, very common. But then the whole table turned.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's too much of a threat to modern medicine, because firstly, you can't really make any money out of homeopathy. You know, it's not like pharmaceutical drugs where, you know, obviously billions are being made. And so they didn't really want to encourage it. But I think, I kind of get frustrated sometimes when people say, oh, I've got this wrong thing. I go, well, I know a remedy. But, you know, there is this thing with not always offering your services. You know, you have to wait till people come to you. You know, that's a bit of a spiritual law in healing, isn't it? Plus, you can't heal the world, etc. But you're right. I don't think people realize the power of it. I mean, you can do ancestral healing, you can clean your blood, you can be creative with it, you can connect to other star systems, you can, let's say, improve your intuition. I mean, there's so many different aspects.
Well, let's talk about that, because we're very familiar, and I know a lot of our viewers and listeners will be very familiar with Aingeal Rose, for example. Sometimes in doing Akashic record readings for people, somebody might complain that their dog has itchy ears or something, and she'd prescribe a homeopathic remedy, you know, and not so much prescribe, suggest. I beg your pardon. But and the same with our children, you know, they might complain of having a cold or a sore throat or something, and she'd immediately just pass out this suggestion straight away. But when you mentioned about connecting to other star systems, tell us about that.
Well, actually, it's simpler than it couldn't be more simple than taking a blueprint of a star and making a remedy from it. You can do it a few different ways. You can actually just put water on top of a photograph, or I can actually copy the frequency of that into a radionics instrument, which can make homeopathic remedies without the kind of the old-fashioned process of water and making a mother tincture. So it's amazing how those actually work. And I don't know if you know about Veda Austin's work, or do you know about her work? She's doing this amazing crystallization at the moment. Like, just say, for instance, you put a shell in some water, you take it out, and then you freeze it. The water shows the vibration of the shell. So, you know, just with that in mind, you can make remedies out of just sticking glasses of water on top of photographs.
Well, now you're touching on something really close to our hearts, because Aingeal Rose, tell us the story of how we mentioned Kerry earlier on, and we made water sacred earth tinctures from various sacred sites in Kerry and throughout Ireland and throughout the UK. Indeed, tell us about that, Aingeal Rose.
Oh, it was just one summer when we went to Ireland, and first all we saw was black cats everywhere, right? We're like, okay, what's with the black cats, right? And so finally it ended up taking us to the Cave of the Cats.
Nagat.
Okay. Which I don't know if you've known that, but it's not quite easy to find. You know, it's not like Newgrange or something that's got all these signs all over. But we did stop at a little visitor center.
Yeah.
And a guy gave us a flashlight and said, well, if you're going to go there, you need a flashlight, because it's a 12-foot drop down. It's a cave, right, that Queen Maeve happened to be in. And but he couldn't tell us how to get there. So Ahonu just had to kind of follow his nose. And we found it. And
I remember asking somebody who lived, as it turned out, to be reasonably close, and they had all these black cats all over
their yard. It turns out that the site was right by their property. Okay. Yeah. Wow. So he's climbing down this shaft. I wouldn't dare go in it because I'm a bit claustrophobic like that. But it was so pitch black in there that I kept having to call him and saying, "Are you still there?" And he's like, "Yeah, you did go back, right?" So it's like a 12-foot passage, and then it drops down into this cave. But anyway, what we'd do was we'd bring a little jar of water, pure water, and we'd put it down on the floor of the site, and we'd call in the spirits of the place to put in how much of their essence they wanted. And you'd know when it came in. You would just know. So you'd quickly put the lid on and bring the jar back out.
Let's have a look at a 2-minute clip that we recorded at the time of that crazy experience. This is the entrance to the underground cave called the Cave of the Cats.
It's pitch black that you have to crawl down to get to the inside of the cave. So of course Aingeal Rose sent Ahonu in there. To Ahonu, trying to film what it's like inside as he was making his way in, so we could have a water from it. We understood why we were seeing all these cats.
It's the entrance to the other world, not the underworld.
Yeah, which is where the She come through, which is the fairy kingdom.
What's this?
There's Ahonu making the water. Yeah, it's quite eerie in there, and you definitely feel the power of that cross between the worlds inside.
Their history and their legacy.
Yeah, I'm here. Hello.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Aingeal Rose was freaking out.
She thought I was lost and gone forever.
Waiting for her beloved to return safely. Yes, exactly.
Coming out of the darkness. The bowels of the earth. This is Ahonu trying to crawl out of Owen Nagat. The cave of the cats.
Boy, it's dark and scary in there.
Doesn't Spirit have a sense of humor?
That happened to be the whole summer. We were guided to go different places. Now go here, now go there, go to the Ring of Kerry, and what's that other place, that oratory that we went last?
Oh, Gallerus
Oratory. Yeah. We were so exhausted by the time we weren't going to go there, and then we were driving home. There was an arrow that said it was a mile away, right? And the thing is, it's pouring rain out. We said, well, we're so close, we might as well go. And the guy from the visitor center came out. He saw our car and he said, drive right up here, drive right up here. Now, he had no idea who we were. And he goes, you need to get in there, don't you? And we'd say, yeah. So he opened up the gate and we drove up to the site. And he said, stay as long as you want and then tell me when you're ready. But the whole summer ended up being like, we got into places that were closed because of the solstice or this or that, where the guy with the keys would just happen to be coming down the mountain and saying, you need to get in there, don't you? So we made all these remedies from all these power spouts. And we didn't know how to get them back to America because UPS wouldn't ship them because we weren't a commercial enterprise. And of course, the post wouldn't. So we had a friend on the property who was a homeopath. She brought us over all these pellets and all these little bottles, and she made these miniature little remedies out of all of those sacred sites. And so they were easy to ship home and just put them in your suitcase, you know. But what you do is we would take one of them, we'd put a drop in like some water and we'd all drink some. And then we'd go into like this instant altered state, and the place would just tell you about itself and tell you what its uses were. So we're kind of familiar with strange things like that. So when you said star seeds, I'd say, yeah, I'd like to know where I come from and have a remedy that matches it, because I have a very hard time being in a body on this earth, you know? And I go through these phases where I'm deeply lonely, you know? I just say to Ahonu, I'm so lonely. And he'd say, what are you lonely for? I'm here, you know? And I think
but she's lonely for connection and home, you know? And that is something I know you do. When you talk about using homeopathy for connecting with star systems and source, or even wanting to improve your intuition, I believe that is something that needs to be shared far and wide, and that's why we wanted you to speak about it today. So how does it actually work in terms of resolving trauma, ancestral or past life? How does it work to be able to reconnect with your place of origin?
Well, you know, if someone comes to me, let's say with most people have quite a few different problems, so I will ask a few questions and get a medical history and so forth. But if we want to make a remedy, let's say to create a better connection, more intuition, I'll ask using a dowsing process if that's okay, and then I will choose a remedy based on that. And I have all these different kind of ways of choosing. I have a pile of books with crystals and orchids and, you know, and kind of charts where I can check, do they need, would that be good for them to have a blueprint of their star system? So I kind of ask lots of different questions, and I check to see if that's what's needed. Because one thing is, what I want as Sarah in this kind of reality, and what my spirit wants, is possibly two different things. So I try and work directly from my higher self to whoever I'm working with, the client's higher self, and see what needs to be done. Like, for instance, they might want to have better intuition, but when I do the kind of reading through a kind of dowsing process, actually they need to clear their ancestral line first. So I think my point I'm making is that people don't realize sometimes they're being blocked. It could be by medication, it could be by ancestral trauma, it could be by their own trauma, it could be by various factors, and we need to do a little bit of the clear up job. And as well as we can add into the mix maybe a remedy that helps them have more of a kind of spiritual development. But there are reasons why people are not moving forward in that way, and it seems like it seems like cleaning house. That's what we're doing a little bit before they can then move forward. Can I just say some clients come to me and they've already done quite a lot of work on themselves, and so we jump directly into more remedies which have very high frequencies, like diamonds and all sorts of crystals, and then star origin, and then ormus and things like that, stuff, magical stuff that their spirit wants to work with. And so you can have a combination of like 5 to 7 different very high frequency remedies, and we use I use this Fibonacci potency a lot as well. So that's another layer of kind of getting into a very deep spiritual kind of, you can move through kind of densities very easily with the Fibonacci potencies.
So when you talk about those layers, you have a name for them. You call them homochords. Now, I haven't heard of that before. So where did that come from?
I think that's originally from radionics, actually, the practice of radionics with radionics instruments. I think it worked. Basically, it's just a few different homeopathic remedies, sometimes of the same potency and sometimes of different potencies, all in the same bottle. So you're kind of, it's like you're kind of playing a percussion, you know, like a drum set, and you're hitting lots of things, you know, different sounds, different frequencies. It kind of works like that. But instead of having to take 10 different remedies, you can take it as one remedy. And because I've doused it, there's a kind of synergy between them all. So they all work together, creating kind of a living remedy. I mean, they're alive at the frequency.
Yeah.
Do you find, Sarah, that different star systems yield different diseases in people once they get on Earth?
Well, there is, you know, there is definitely some of that. I think what you were saying about loneliness and homesickness, there are some themes that seem to be for everybody, you know, but those, let's say, I mean, I'm still learning more and more, because every time someone comes to me, I'm doused to see where they're from, and it's often a new place that I don't know. But also, I think there's this thing that, you know, we're not having one lifetime. You know, we're from a few different places, including possibly many Earth lifetimes as well, as you know. So yeah, I mean, yeah, there's themes with each kind of star system. I mean, you can actually go online and look those themes up, you know, and you can read them and see which one, if you are looking to find out what your star seed is, you can read them and say, oh, well, I resonate with that. I resonate with this, especially if you have intuitions. But I've noticed that there's certain remedies which relate to certain star seeds. So whether you need to take them or not, if you are that star seed, is another question. But
interesting. Yeah. Well, now, you know how Aingeal Rose mentioned the difficulty we had 10 or 12 years ago trying to bring homeopathic remedies from Ireland to the United States, right? But now with the advances in technology and so on, like in the same way as you're in Kerry right now and we're in the central United States in Arizona, and yet we're speaking as if there's no distance. So homeopathy, I understand, works in the same way. You can actually treat people all over the world almost instantaneously. Tell us about that, because I know our listeners would be very interested in finding out how you can help them, and you based across the other side of the world.
Okay, well, there's the classic, obviously, making a remedy and sending it. That's the old-fashioned way. And you can also, if I do that, because some people actually want to have remedies in their hand, it makes them feel more secure, and they are working with that frequency there and then.
Sure.
Other ways are that you can use a radionics instrument to actually send frequencies to people. For instance, I have my radionics instrument now sending a remedy to someone in the UK. He's not very well, and I've doused what he needs, and it's being sent to him. And I'll probably speak to him later, and he'll say, I'm feeling a lot better. It's happened many times. So you can choose to have your remedy just sent to you via the radionics instrument, or you can have it sent to you in real form. But also the nice thing, if I am working with you and suddenly you get ill, then you can send me an email and I can stick you on my instrument.
Right. Now, you know, when you say send the remedy to somebody, you're not talking about 5G or any kind of EMF methodology. You're talking this being some psychic method. Am I correct? Or can you explain that to us?
It is a bit, this is where it gets a bit tricky. It's through the ether. It's because there is no time and space. We're talking quantum. There's only one of you. Once I have your name and your birth date, that's your kind of signature. And there is only one of you in the world, and if I then put you on my instrument, but even just write your name and your date and send you a remedy, that basically the remedy is being sent to your vibration. And because there's only one of you, there is no time and space, you receive that straight away, because in the world beyond matter, there are completely different rules. The amazing thing is, I'm obviously not a physicist, so I'm sure someone who was, did quantum mechanics could explain that a lot better than me. But the fact is, it works.
Yes, we know. Indeed, is that the way, Aingeal Rose, when you're doing Akashic record readings, don't you go off the vibration of somebody's name as well? Yeah.
Yes, that's how it's done.
Yeah. So
I mentioned to you the last time we talked that I'm ready to have you work with me. So you were going to send me a questionnaire, okay? And I don't think I've received it. So for other people who want to do the same, can you tell them how they get in touch with you and how they do this process and everything about it?
Sure. Well, I have a website, www.homeopathy.com, and if you go onto that, you can have a little look around. I always like to look around and see who I'm dealing with. So there's an about page. I explain a little bit more how I found homeopathy, and you can look at the different types of consultations I do. You can either have a remedy made for you via a questionnaire, which is one price, and then there's also a consultation where we can actually meet online and talk. It depends. I wanted to make it accessible for everybody, so there's two different prices.
And that's accessible from people anywhere in the world. They can go to your website and receive a remedy in that way. Now, speaking of remedies, Sarah, let's talk for a moment about that great shot in the arm, right?
Oh, yeah.
And without mentioning names, because we don't want to get shut down, none of us. But is there a remedy for that kind of thing? Can you talk to that?
Oh yes. Well, actually, that is one thing I do most when people come to me. I do check about their vaccination history. You can clear vaccinations through homeopathic versions of those vaccinations. For instance, all the different childhood vaccinations, they've been potentized and put in a remedy, and you can then take it over a series of like 4 to 6 weeks, and then that clears it from your body. And you can do that with all different types of vaccinations. And the beauty of it is it just really works. It's called tautopathy. That's the name of it. Tautopathy.
Yes, I wondered about that. I had an experience of that just a couple of days ago, because we've been following Dr. Brian Ardis's recommendation to use nicotine patches to clear some of this spike proteins and various things from the body, Now, all that's great. And I put one of these patches on my arm up here, which is exactly the same site as children get the MMR and all those other vaccinations.
Right? The one that leaves the scar, what is that, polio?
Yeah, and polio and others, the one with the 6 circular and all that, and the scar and so on. Yeah, well, after having that patch on for like 12 hours, I found my shoulder feeling the same numb pain that I felt when I got that original thing as a child.
Wow.
And I found that really interesting, because I thought, all those childhood vaccinations are all cleared and gone. No, it's like as if this was pulling more stuff out of that same vaccination site.
Wow.
I was stunned.
It's amazing. It's really interesting, because some of those older vaccinations aren't as bad as the ones obviously today.
Sure.
But I'll just tell you a little bit of what happened to me. When I started to try and clear, I didn't have that many vaccinations, but I did have polio, and I took the polio homeopathic potency, And I had a kind of dark night of the soul. I was lying in bed. I felt like someone was at my head with a sledgehammer, and I could feel this energy shifting out of my body. I mean, I knew what it was because obviously I'd taken the remedy, but I was shocked how like I had that trapped in me. I was carrying that around all the time. And it was only when it was almost like an exorcism, to be honest. It got released from my body.
Yes.
And I was like, phew, afterwards, like, God, I'm glad to get rid of that. Woo.
Yeah.
But yes,
Wow.
I think it's more powerful than we think. I mean, there's a lot of dark energy attached to these vaccinations. And another healer I know, she always used to say that people with a lot of vaccinations had like a man, like a scary looking dark man at the bottom of their bed. You know, it was kind of, there's something weird energetically. So as I said, I think if we can clear it, let's do it. You know, let's do it. Yeah,
that's fantastic. And I'm really glad that you're sharing that, because we get asked too a lot about that kind of thing. By way of kind of bringing this full circle, you're in a place in Ireland where there's a lot of understanding around sacred places and sacred plants and sacred trees and all that kind of thing. And indeed, coming from London, where you're close enough to the place where a lot of those crop circles come down. And can you tell us about that? Do they hold frequencies that can help people through the homeopathic process too?
Well, interesting you're saying that, because I actually went with my daughter. We kind of got on the road. You know, sometimes you just do stuff and things happen. And it just so happens we arrived in Wiltshire. This is earlier this year on the solstice. And I looked on my Instagram account, and someone had sent me something about a new crop circle that had arrived in Wiltshire. And I was like, well, that's half an hour from where we are. Let's go there. So it was the solstice. We just so happened to be on this beautiful hill. It was blue sunshine, you know, blue skies. And me and my daughter went out, and this amazing crop circle. And I had never been to one before, actually, which was, you know, I'm old enough and I hadn't been to one, but I was always very intrigued by them. And it was just such a high, I can't tell you. And then what happened the next day at 6 o'clock in the morning when nobody was there, I went out and I just lay in it and I just asked, what is it that I'm receiving here? And it was just love, peace, and receive. It was a very high vibration. And I walked out and I was like, this is just incredible. I felt so good and happy. And I took a piece of the wheat. I didn't touch it with my hands. And I said, that is to make a really beautiful remedy from the energy of this on the solstice. And there was nobody there. And yeah, the power of being able to take that and then make a remedy out of it and then share that with everybody. I mean, obviously we can't all get there. But saying that, if you have a photograph of a crop circle that you feel connected to, you can make a water remedy out of it. It doesn't have a potency, but that frequency is obviously going into the water. And I feel it's information to help us evolve. That's what I feel is going on there.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how I felt at Chaco Canyon, remember?
That's right, yeah.
A place in there in New Mexico, actually. Chaco Canyon was a bunch of reportedly Pueblo Indian ruins. However, we didn't have that experience when we were there. We kind of went back to the Lyran star system when those beings originally came to Earth. But
Wow.
We made a water essence from there too. But it was the kind of place that miles away from it, I started to feel this love energy, and it was just this love and well-being and everything's okay. And when we got there, it was so full of that I just sat in the car and absorbed it all for hours.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean when you go to a place that just fills you with that. And it's kind of like the memory of home when you feel that,
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, you don't have to be anywhere. You don't have to go anywhere. It's like you're in the moment so beautifully, because that's all you need. You just need that, we all need that love. It's there, and I've been to that place when I was 18, actually. I came to New Mexico and had a kind of 3-month journey traveling around, looking at different amazing places. I don't know how I ended up there, but that was something I did when I was quite young.
Wow. Well, tell us one last thing that we'd love for you to speak about, Sarah, and that is, you talk about co-creating remedies. Can you explain that, what you mean by that, and how that's going to help people grow with their own inner knowledge and wisdom?
Yeah, I mean, I think the times have changed. You know, in the past, people went to healers, and they kind of expected those healers to kind of give it all to them, you know, like, and tell them what to do, a bit like the kind of the doctor and the patient relationship. But what I found over time is that the people I'm working with have such high frequency, are so, you know, are wise, has so much life experience, that actually I want it to be more of a creative relationship, where I'm not taking a position of, let's say, superiority, where I'm telling them what they need and etc. I'm trying to kind of work with them, because they know what they need, and together we kind of decide how, let's work on that, and then after we've worked on that, we can attend to the next level or the next layer. But I feel like that's much more respectful. I enjoy that kind of taking, let's say, the way I do it is like, take everything out the box and lay it on the table, and we both look at it together and kind of get an idea, and then it's something usually kind of pops up as the thing that really needs to be dealt with. We go, okay, let's focus on that. That doesn't mean that you can't deal with more than one thing at the same time, but it's like there's usually a kind of an opening theme to each remedy. And it's just working like that, I think you get the best results. And then also it's empowering to other people, because they're part of that process, or to the people I'm working with. Yeah. So rather than me just giving them a bottle and say, that's going to work for you, do you know?
So how would that co-creating work for somebody remotely, somebody in Australia or China or South America, South Africa, if they connect with you on your website, how does that kind of co-creation of a remedy work?
So we'd be talking, like, during a Zoom call, we'll be talking about all the different issues, the things they want to focus on, that, you know, we basically through words, through discussion. That's not so easily done when I do the other version, where I'm just using a questionnaire. But on the questionnaire, I give them what is it, what are your aims, what are you looking for? You know, I try and get information out of them about how they want to work with the remedies, and, you know, what is their intention, you know. So that's not so easy. It's much easier, obviously, when we're talking. I think you get more out of it when you're talking, because there's, you know, there's one human to another, so to speak. But it's still good with the questionnaire, actually. I'm always surprised. Like, sometimes the remedies, which are all completely different. I mean, every single remedy is a completely different combination, and there's thousands of different types of remedies that can go into one bottle, you know. So, you know, it's a bit like pick and mix.
Let's wind up with a big question, right? You mentioned about star seeds and people waking up and growth of awareness and all of that. So many people feel really confused about what's going on in the world, and they feel intimidated by the political stuff and the financial stuff and the threats of war and all the rest of it. So let's just look at the big picture here. Is it possible to make a kind of a global remedy that might help a lot of people at once? I don't know if you've ever been asked that before, but what's your thoughts on that?
Well, that I've been kind of working with that idea myself, because I've noticed that at times everybody needs the same remedy. I mean, I've noticed it through kind of remedies work in a really interesting, energetic way. There's a symbology to them. There's you know, they suddenly kind of pop up around you. Suddenly see, let's say, this, like, 3 or 4 things happen which seem to be interconnected, and you notice there's a pattern. You go, that's interesting. Why has that happened? You know how you do. You know, it's a typical way of reading your environment. And then usually I go away and I kind of go, well, what remedy is that? Like, there was one recently where I was sitting on the beach and there was all these swans, you know, and I was like, that's interesting. There's never swans here. And I was having, at that time, I was going through something personal, and I was thinking, what remedy is this? What remedy? And it seemed like that feeling had been heightened at that moment in time. And then when I went home and I thought about it. I said, maybe there's this swan. I'm sure I've got that remedy. So then I looked up the swan remedy, and the actual remedy was created by a man who was sitting on a beach watching swans. Right.
Interesting.
And I realized that remedy, what it's really good for is grief that you can't resolve. It just keeps going round in circles, which is what was happening to me at the time. And then I noticed everybody needed this remedy, and that was to do with what was happening with the transit, astrologically, the moon, whatever. Yeah. So then that started to become an idea that maybe we could all take a remedy at the same time. So I started, I've done it once on Instagram, but I think it was the Hunter moon on the 17th of October. I put out a remedy for everybody to take if they wanted to. Right. And I thought at the time, trying this out is like a big experiment. But the thing is, because everybody can make remedies through water, there's a way of doing it. Do you know that way of making a remedy? You have a circle with a triangle in it. And then you write inside the triangle the name of the remedy. So just say if you could put Arnica 200 seat in the triangle, and then you put a glass on top of it with 2 inches of water, and you put in the sunshine, or you put under a lamp, and that is the remedy in 20 minutes. So if you don't have the remedy, you can make the remedy.
Well, that's interesting, because we used to do something similar, but without the water. I mean, I remember we would just simply write the remedy on a piece of paper and put it in your sock, or put it in your, inside your shirt. And that worked for me. Now, perhaps because, I mean, well, it's questionable whether you needed to believe it or not, but I believed it and it worked.
The thing is, it's amazing, with homeopathy, the power of the word. In the beginning, there was the word. The word has that vibration. Yeah. When you have chosen something, you're connected to it, you know why you need it, it works. I mean, there's been so many times I've given a remedy to somebody or to an animal in my house, and then I noticed, a few hours later, the remedy's on the floor. They didn't even take the remedy, and they're already better,
Right. Yes. Cool.
Just to say, that's a really useful thing. If you're ill in the middle of the night and you're on your own, you can imagine the word of the remedy, and you can say it in your mind, and you just say the word. Just say you were saying arnica. You just let it kind of fill your head with that word. And I often let it kind of go up the back of my neck and then come over into my head, and I just hold that vibration once I've said the word inside my head. It really works. So it's just good to know a few different remedies, so that if you need to, you can always access that information. And it does, as you said, in your sock, it works. It just works.
It does. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to ask her something else, Aingeal Rose, before we wrap up?
Well, I just wanted to give her website address again, and
okay,
that's it.
All right. So do you prefer people to contact you through your website, Sarah, or to call you or email? Website's best.
Website's best. You can send me, there's a contact form that you can fill in, and I'll get back to you within a few hours usually.
Well, that's been very, very helpful today, and I really hope, and I believe it will be helpful for a lot of people too. So we really appreciate you taking the time coming to us from the Kingdom of County Kerry in the west of Ireland. We appreciate it, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. So blessings, Sarah, and thanks again.
Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you, and I know how much you love homeopathy, and very, very happy to have met you online today.
Well, what did you think of that? We explored the transformative power of homeopathy as a spiritual tool, and Sarah Sylvester shared how her upbringing and her passion for spiritual growth led her to create bespoke remedies, especially for starseeds and light workers. We learned about homochords, tautopathy, and the fascinating ways that sacred plants, ancient trees, and even crop circles hold frequencies that can aid in our healing and evolution. And she also shared insights into clearing energetic blueprints from our physical bodies and the importance of co-creating remedies with respect for each client's inner wisdom. If this episode inspired you to deepen your spiritual journey or explore homeopathy in a whole new way, contact Sarah on her website at devahomeopathy.com, and you can find her on Instagram at Starseed Homeopath. So don't forget to share this episode with a friend and join us next time for more enlightening conversations. Thank you for watching and for listening. With blessings from myself, Ahonu, and from Aingeal Rose.
You have been listening to Aingeal Rose and Ahonu on World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world.